We started Parshas Vayetze. We're in the middle here. Chapter 29, we're continuing. Jacob has left. He is heading back to Abraham's and Yitzchak's homeland. And he's heading back to basically escape his brother. His brother Esav wants to kill him because of the incident with the blessings. That, if you recall, Esav was supposed to get the blessing from Isaac, from Yitzchak, and Jacob conspired with his wife, and under her direction, he ended up getting the blessing, and Esav was infuriated, filled with rage over that, and threatened to kill him. And so his mother said, you need to go, you need to get out of here, go back to my homeland, go back to where I come from, and stay there until hopefully Esav calms down. So last week we spoke, Jacob left, and he's on his way, and he's about to leave the land of Israel. And just as he was about to leave the land of Israel, he had this encounter at the Holy of Holies, where the temple is going to stand, and he had this dream and this vision of the ladder with the angels. And he woke up and realized that he was on a holy ground, and he realized what he had almost missed that encounter. All right, we're continuing with the story. That's to just jump us back in here. So we're at chapter 29. So Jacob lifted his feet and went toward the land of the Easterners. He looked, and behold, a well in the field. And behold, 3 flocks of sheep lay there beside it. For from that well they would water the flocks. And the stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks would be assembled there, they would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep. Then they would put back the stone over the mouth of the well in its place. It's a very strange description. Jacob has now arrived at the land of his mother's upbringing, and the first thing he sees when he gets there is this particular image of this well, and you see right away that there's already 3 flocks there, which means there's already some shepherds there. There's already 3 flocks there, and it's got this stone over it. And they're going into this description of this image of Jacob seeing a well, and everyone just, it doesn't say they're drinking from the well. It says that they're just hanging around this well because it's got the stone on the well. And then it says, and all the flocks would come, and then they would remove the stone. It's a very peculiar scene. It's just like a very idle scene is really the word I'm looking for. You should be picturing just a bunch of people just standing around. It's a very idle scene. It's not a very, just this peculiar scene of just these shepherds and the flocks just standing there. So Jacob is obviously perplexed by this image. It's like, it just seems out of character. It's not what you expect, people think, shepherds just sit around all day, but they don't. They're herding the flocks. So Jacob said to them, my brothers, where are you from? And they said, we're from Haran. And he said, you're from Haran? That's where I'm supposed to be going. Do you know Lavan, the son of Nahor? And they said, yes, we know. He said to them, is it well with him? They answered, it is well. And see, his daughter Rachel is coming with the flock. And then Jacob says to them, I'm confused. Look, the day is still long. It's not the end of the day. What are you all just standing around here? It is not yet time to bring the livestock in. So I don't understand. Water the flock and go on grazing. What are y'all just standing around there for? You came to the well. Obviously, you want your sheep to drink, so give your sheep some drink and go on. You're just standing around. And then they said, no, we're unable to. We can't take the rock off the well. Until all the flocks have been gathered, then they will roll the stone off the mouth of the well. We will then water the flock. A very bizarre scenery here. Jacob comes and he sees this well, and he sees people just standing around. Why aren't they lifting the rock off the well to feed their flocks and go on? And they say, we can't do that. We have to wait until everyone is here. Why do you have to wait till everyone is here? So it turns out that the rock that they put on top of the well was so heavy that it required everyone to lift it. Now, why would you do that? I can understand there's definitely a reason why you should cover a well. An open well is not safe. It's just not safe. I remember one time, this is a bizarre story, but I was in high school, and I was an office aide. So it's a peculiar thing. I don't know. I tell people my stories from my high school, and they might think I was talking about the times of Little House on the Prairie. Times have changed so drastically that people are like, but it wasn't that long ago. It was long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But anyway, so one of the periods of high school, I was an office aide, which means I didn't have to go to a class that period. It meant I helped in the office. And basically what that meant was that if anyone got a detention slip, I'm the one who delivered it. That's basically what it meant, that I had to deliver the notices to the different classes. And that particular day, I had to bring a project in from school, from home. But the project was the size of this table. It was one of these things where you had to build something. And so it didn't fit in my locker. So I was in the band homeroom, because I was in the marching band. So our homeroom was in the orchestra room, which was right behind the auditorium of the stage. And so I figured, okay, you know what? My homeroom is right by the auditorium. I'll just sneak into the stage, and I'll put it on top of, I'll leave it in the stage. And when it's time for me to go to the class that I need to go to, which is right after the period that I was the office aide, right at the end of that period, I'll go to the stage, I'll get my project and bring it to the classroom. And that's what I did. I went from homeroom into the stage, and I put my project on the stage on top of the piano. And I went about my day. And a few periods later, when I was the office aide, I was helping with the office. And about 5 minutes before that period ended, I asked the office aide if I could leave a little early. I needed to get something. She said, sure. The secretary said, sure. So I go into the stage, and I'm walking across the stage, and I'm about to move the curtain to go to the piano to grab my thing. And next thing I know, I'm falling midair 30 feet down.
What?
Someone had left a trap door open.
A booby trap?
No, that's a trap door. That's just what it's called. It's a door in the floor. So in the stage, this was a high school that had a big stage performance, and so they had lots of musical productions that they would put on, and stage productions and things, and they would make their sets. And when they would finish with the sets, they would lower them, because where are they going to store them? So there was a basement under the stage that they would lower the sets down into, the props. And someone had opened the door and left it open. And I didn't see it because it was behind the curtain. And when I had put my project, I had come from the other side. So when I had come from the other side, I didn't see it either. And I put my project on the piano and I left. But now that I'm coming from the other side, I just straight down. Thankfully, I was okay. Nothing happened. Baruch Hashem.
Did you scream?
But I thought I was trapped down there.
What did you fall?
Oh, so the reason I didn't break my leg is thankfully the props.
Wow.
I had landed, the props had been slid down, and there were so many of them that they were leaned up against the wall that they were on a slight angle. So I hit and slid down. But it was so dark, I thought I was trapped down there. That's not the purpose of the class. The purpose of the story is to tell you that having something that has an opening in the ground, not covered, is not safe. So you want something on top of that. So you've got a well. A well is not safe to just be left open. So it makes sense to put a lid on it. But why would you put a lid on it that is impossible to lift? Unless every single shepherd is there. So everyone gets an even chance. Now think about that. Because that is an unbelievable insight to what this story is telling us. Because on the surface, that sounds like a reasonable solution. But it's a reasonable solution to a distorted mentality. Think about this. Why is it that we need to put a rock that's so heavy that no one can lift it unless everybody's here. Because everybody is thinking one thing. You're getting my share. You're getting my share. You're getting more than you're supposed to. And if everybody's thinking that, then you know what they're thinking about themselves? I better take more because I'm not going to get. I better take more because I'm not going to get. And everybody is so concerned about what they're going to get that it becomes this mentality of me, survival of me. And therefore, what do we do about that? We come up with what sounds like a logical solution. We'll make a situation, we'll make a system where everybody will get an equal amount. How? We'll put a rock on the well that can only be lifted if we're all here. And if we're all here, then everyone will get what they need. And everyone will get their fair share. And what you have to realize is that often, and this is where, and you know, I don't discuss politics. I'm not going to discuss politics. I'm going to leave it to you to do your own analysis. But what this story begs us to do is to analyze policy. And we always have to ask ourselves, when we are making policies, when our society, when our government, when our community, when our friends, when our shul, when any group that we're a part of is making a policy, are we making that policy because it's a logical solution to a situation that has to be? Or is it a logical solution to a situation that doesn't have to be? In other words, are we just trying to solve something that the only reason we're in this situation is because of a warped mindset? That we have a warped mindset. And instead of fixing the mindset, instead of fixing the problem is that we're all selfish. That's the problem. The problem isn't that everyone's not getting their share. The problem is we're all selfish. We're only worried about ourselves. And instead of fixing that, what do? Well, let's just make a system where nobody can be selfish. Well, why don't you get rid of the selfishness? And that's what we have to constantly ask ourselves. When we do something, certainly, and again, I'm not going to discuss politics, but there are definitely policies that you can think of that our government does that are there simply to help alleviate the situation that we don't need to be in. And instead of addressing the insanity, well, let's create a policy to help deal with the insanity. Instead of saying, no, that's insanity. And basically, and you're probably starting to figure out some of the things that I'm referring to. And instead of saying that that's insane, what we do is we create policy which normalizes insanity. Basically saying it's okay to be insane because we've got a policy to deal with it now. It's okay to be selfish. It's okay to just think about yourself. It's okay to look at everybody else and think that they're being selfish too. Yeah, why? Because we have because we have a system that protects that. We have a system that protects that. We put a rock on there so that nobody gets too much. But it's insane. Because look at the damage that causes as well. That's what Jacob is saying to them. Look at wasted time. Probably the greatest resource, one of the greatest resources we have in life is time. It is the only resource that... Money is a phenomenal resource. But you know what? Plenty of people have made millions, lost millions, and made them again. Now, I'm not saying that's a guarantee, but it's possible. The one thing that is not possible to get back is lost time. And because of this system, Jacob is looking at them going, what are you doing? There's plenty of time left in the day. And you're using up your time because you've normalized insanity. And now you've got to deal with that insanity because you've normalized it by putting this rock here. You have to think about that. You know, when it's going, trust me. Hopefully you're starting to understand and see a few examples of this.
What if the well dries up, right? Because
the well's not going to dry up. It's a well. Well's not going to dry up.
If they take too much of it.
If they take too much. So that's the thing. Get rid of the selfishness.
People don't. That's the problem.
Well, that's the problem. Grow up.
They don't.
So hopefully you'll put some thought in, you know, when it's time for people to start voting on policies and resolutions and all kinds of and laws. That's what you should be thinking about. Don't think about, is this law, what do most people do? Again, I'm slipping too into politics, and then I'll take your question to get me off the politics. But what most people do is when they think of a resolution, they ask, well, will this work? Instead of asking, will this work, ask, is this the direction we should be going in? Is this the direction we should be going in as a society? We're allowing insanity by creating resolutions that normalize insanity. Yeah.
Do the whales in the Torah, or maybe specifically to this parsha, do they represent something, or is it just regular whales?
The answer to that is absolutely yes. I mean, everything in the Torah is representative of something. Everything in the Torah is there to teach us something, and there are layers upon layers upon layers of Torah. So, the Torah is not a law book, not a history book, not a story book. It is none of that. It is all of those and more. The Torah says, Rabbi Meir says, Hafich ba hakol ba. Turn it over, turn it over, turn it over. It's all in there. It's all in there. Meaning, every little detail in the Torah is there to teach us something. And there are layers upon layers. There are shivim panim, it says. There are 70 different faces to the Torah. Meaning every word you read, every sentence you read, every paragraph, every story, there are 70 different ways of understanding that. And the only way to see that is to start really peeling apart. So why a well? Why is this story being taught over a well? This is not just about the life of Jacob. This is about the life of what it means to be a Jew and what it means to be a human and what it means to go through life. And so what is a well? What does a well represent? A well is water. What is water? Water is wisdom. So they're all gathering around the wisdom. There's so much to it. They're all gathering around the wisdom. They can't get the wisdom. Why can't they get the wisdom? You got to. That's how you learn Torah. We don't have the time to go through every little thing. Yeah.
Remember, there's a lot of whales.
Oh, there's wells throughout. There's wells. Another thing you see a lot of is camels. There's all kinds of stuff.
Camels.
Just a quick drop.
Yeah,
There
please.
is a class online with Rabbi Denbo called The Wells.
There is?
YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. There is. A class for you sure for me?
Yes.
For me, and it's called The Wells?
Yeah,
Yes.
on YouTube.
What do camels represent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have time for that.
That.
When we get there.
Wells, we did 3 wells.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, because of Abraham. No, Abraham. They with Yitzchak.
Right.
They sealed up the wells, and then Yitzchak had redug them. Oh yeah, very good. Well, so you called it the wells. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Now, what's fascinating is, watch this. So, while he was speaking with them, Rachel arrived with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. And it was when Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the flock of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came forward and rolled the stone off the mouth of the well. Jacob lifted the rock off himself.
What?
Okay? Now, there's all kinds of that's what we could really have a field day here. I'm not going to go in that direction. The one thing that I'm definitely going to show you is that Jacob was an incredibly powerful person. He was an incredibly strong person. You know, when we read the story of Jacob and Esau, a lot of times you mistakenly get this image of a very timid, weak individual. Esau is come across as this hunter, as this powerful, rugged outdoorsman, out there on the ground and really, like a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL, that's Esau. And then you see, Jacob, he's the shepherd, he's the quiet, he's the professor. And it's not true. It's not true. It is true that he wasn't this gruff, unpolished, crass individual like Esau was, but he was not a timid, weak person. what we're going to see is that, on the contrary, and I alluded to this last week, that he's not weak and timid, but there is an element of naivete. And again, I reiterate, we have to be very careful when we speak disparagingly and even in the slightest way about our forefathers. But yet it's here to teach us something. And we're going to see that Esau is a man of the world, and Jacob is not yet. And I heard you guys discussing earlier about street smart and book smart, and Jacob does not yet have any street smarts. Okay, not yet. So, but you see, he's a powerful person. He's a powerful person. He lifted this rock that is specifically intended to be unmovable unless they're all there. And he just goes and... Now, granted, it says why, though. Because he saw Rachel. He saw Rachel.
Try to show off,
He was very moved. He was very moved by this. So Jacob kissed Rachel, and he raised his voice, and he cried.
Approximately, do we know how many people was needed to move the rock? 10, like 50, 100, 5,000?
No, that much I don't know.
Probably
But
10 people, right?
no, I just said I don't know, but you could say 10.
Strength of 10 men.
10 to 12.
12 men.
More than one.
More than 3, we'll say that. Okay? Now, nonetheless, Jacob sees Rachel and he cries. And Jacob tells Rachel that he was her father's relative and he was Rebekah's son. That's her father's brother's son. Okay?
You know that?
And she ran and told her father. What?
How did he know where she
They
was?
told him.
What do you mean? They just said. He asked. One paragraph ago. Jacob said, "Where are you from?" "We're from Haran." "Oh, do you know Lavan, the son of Nahor?" "Yeah, we know him. And look, there's his son, there's his daughter Rachel. Right there." Okay, I don't make this stuff up. Okay? Now, so why is he crying? So you have to understand there's 2 reasons why he's crying, and we're going to speak about both of them right now. The first reason he's crying is because he saw with prophecy. Remember, we're talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are prophets. These are men of incredible, incredible stature that speak to the Almighty, and the Almighty speaks to them. And he had a moment of prophecy right then and there. And he knew he was going to marry this girl.
And he's going to get buried together.
And
Not going to bury together.
and he's not going to be buried with her. He knew that he was going to marry her, and he saw that they are not going to be buried together. Rachel, as many of you know, ends up dying on the journey back to Eretz Yisrael, back to the land of Israel. And she ends up getting buried on the road back.
How did she die?
Oh, don't know.
We'll get there.
We'll get there when we get to that part of the story. Now, and Jacob is going to end up being buried in the cave of Machpelah in Hebron. He's not going to be buried next to Rachel. And so he had a moment of crying. The idea of being buried next to your spouse is clearly something that is tantamount. Jacob is crying. He's not even married to her yet. But at this moment, he has a moment of prophecy. And he sees, this is the woman I'm going to marry, but I'm not going to be buried next to her. And he cries. And I thought, so what? What difference does it make? You're dead. You're in the ground. What difference does it make where you're buried? Who you're buried? There's one thing you're going to see time and time again. The Avos, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob cared deeply, and Joseph cared deeply about where they are buried. It's not so simple the way we just gloss it off that it's dead, you're buried. No.
And buried next to who?
And buried next to who? The concept of burial, that concept of burial is not just a way of properly disposing of the body. Burial is actually a sign of this is what I accomplished, this is what I own. I own this land. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they wanted to be buried in Israel as a statement that this is ours. It's the greatest statement of ownership. Think about that. If you own land, anyone in this room who owns land, I'm not fortunate enough to own land. But if anyone in this room is fortunate enough to own land, do you realize how fleeting that ownership could possibly be? You could be forced to sell it like that tomorrow. God forbid. Hopefully all of you that own land don't have to.
I should go buy me some land.
But but in a moment you could lose it. In a moment you could lose it.
Las Vegas.
In a moment you could choose to lose it.
The desert here in the putting out palms, right?
In a moment it could be gone.
Good idea.
But if you're buried there, it's permanent. It's permanent. That is what being buried next to someone is. It's a statement of permanence. It's a statement of eternity. Because marriage is eternal. Marriage is not meant to be the time that we spend together in this world. Marriage is not meant to be just simply a ability to be with someone through this journey called life. And that's what they like. You go and you read all this stuff and, oh, I'm so glad that I was able to share the journey with you. That is not marriage. That's an aspect of marriage. But what is marriage? Marriage is eternal. That you and this other person are one for eternity. And Jacob realized at that moment that there's going to be that essence that could possibly be lacking. That there's going to be an aspect of eternity
That's why he's crying.
that is missing right here, right now with this person. And that caused him to cry. That's the first reason he cried. The second reason he cried is because of something a little more pragmatic, we'll say. A little more pragmatic, a little more tangible. This is not the first time we've seen someone go on a journey, and on that journey, part of the purpose of the journey is to find a wife. Because remember, that's what Jacob's mother told him. She didn't say just run away and hide from your brother. He said, listen, your brother wants to kill you. You know what? It's probably a good time to go get a wife. And go back to my home, and you'll go back to my hometown, and you'll get a wife there. And this way you'll be away from your brother, and you'll find a wife. It's not the first time we saw someone going back to find a wife. When's the last time we saw someone go to find a wife?
Abraham's servant.
Huh? Abraham's servant going to find a wife for Yitzchak. Now, if you remember that story, what did Eliezer show up with?
Gold.
Not just gold.
Camels.
Camels
Camels
filled,
I could see.
laden with wealth.
Wow.
For what purpose? To entice the right girl. And what is Jacob showing up with?
Empty bucket. Empty
Jacob,
bucket.
well, like you know too much. Jacob is showing up
Nothing.
with nothing. And why does he have nothing? The reason he has nothing is the following. Because why? Jacob is ridiculously wealthy. He's the son of Isaac, who is the son of Abraham, who is one of the wealthiest people alive.
And that's-
How is it possible that he's showing up with nothing? How is it possible? Think about it. I used to run trips to Israel.
That's when you know he get it wrong.
He got robbed.
Lindsay,
What?
when Jacob, when you said it, kid, you're a hypocrite. Look in the mirror. Well, I'm having fun tonight. Now, I used to run trips to Israel. College students. And it was a 3-week trip. And the demographic in the room hopefully won't be offended. Oh, well, so be it. But every now and then I'd get a Persian on the trip.
You have time? No.
Robert's version here.
And what they would show up with, they needed a room to themselves. The amount of suitcases they bring. It's like that. The Ashkenazi from New York, New Jersey, shows up with one duffel bag and one suitcase, and and he's good to go. And he's going backpacking through Europe afterwards. Now they go to Thailand and Cambodia, but back then they went to Greece. Okay, think it's the same thing, just different
At least
different
it was
station.
a Persian girl that did
Yeah,
this.
it's a girl. Like,
Oh yeah. So, but then the Persian shows up, and he shows up with 6 suitcases. I was like, "What is all this?" It's like,
you
well,
gotta go for every week one suitcase.
1 week it was 1 suitcase.
Traveling
Shabbos, he would change his clothes 5 times. It's like, what's wrong with you? Like, no, and that's now. Could you imagine? And that's regardless if he was wealthy or not. Imagine if he was wealthy. Okay, so now Jacob is the son of one of the wealthiest Jews alive, and he knows he's going for a good period of time, and he's showing up with nothing. How's that possible? So here's what happened.
Well, you got the bra
Jacob
from?
ran away. Jacob ran away, and he brought, obviously, suitcases full. He was laden. He was prepared for the journey. But what happened? Esav wants him dead. Esav finds out that he ran away. So Esav calls one of his sons, Eliphaz. And he calls one of his sons, "Go find your uncle and kill him." And so he goes. Yeah. And so he goes to kill him. And when he finally catches up with Jacob, Jacob realizes why he's there. And Jacob and him have a conversation. And sure enough, Jacob is able to convince him that it's wrong. Jacob is able to convince him that even though his father gave him this commandment, it is wrong. He shouldn't kill him. And Jacob's nephew, Esav's son, says, "But what am I supposed to do? I can't go home to my father and tell him that I just disobeyed him." And so Jacob says, "No problem. Take all of my possessions. Take everything I own." Because the rabbis in the Gemara say, Chazal tell us, that a person who is poor, and here poor means ownerless, penniless, you have nothing. A person who is that destitute, it's as if they're dead. It's as if they're dead. When you are that poor, when you are that destitute, that you have nothing, you're like a dead person.
Living dead.
And therefore, you can go back to your father, and you can say with a straight conscience, "Yes, I killed my uncle. I took it."
Thinks that Jacob's dead, right?
Jacob thinks he's dead. I mean, Esav thinks Jacob's dead right now. Yeah.
That's a tough concept to put your head around.
Which concept? The fact that he wanted to kill his uncle?
No,
that
if you have nothing, since to some degree we're supposed to not really care about material things. But
very good. Very good. Okay. So that's what I wanted to speak about. So clearly the rabbis are saying that if you have nothing, you're like a dead person. That is not a good thing. The rabbis are saying it is not a good thing. You cannot think that it's a good thing to walk around dead. That is not a positive image. But yet at the same token, it is a clear understanding from Judaism that to have as a goal in life a pursuit of wealth and a pursuit of material goods is also not a good thing. It's a very shallow existence.
Yeah, what are we going to do?
So how do you balance these two? So I want to balance them by quoting Mesilat Yesharim again. I quoted it last week, and I find it actually incredible that this concept is in Mesilat Yesharim in the same exact context as the story from last week, the 12 stones. Remember the 12 stones last week? Jacob took the 12 stones and put them around his head, and all 12 stones came to one.
One stone.
And the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the owner of Mesilat Yesharim, the owner of the Path of the Just, he proved from that story the following idea. Before I teach you the idea, I want to say the following. If you read the introduction, the first chapter of Mesilat Yesharim, the Path of the Just, you will see that he seems to contradict himself. And in the starting of the chapter, he seems to say the following. Actually, you read it. He says the following. He says that there's absolutely no benefit to anything in this world. Nothing in this world. This world has nothing to offer a person other than one thing and one thing only. What,
You're okay.
yeah?
Continue on normal schedule.
What's normal schedule? Whatever.
9:30, 9:15, 9:30.
Oh, yeah.
9:30.
So, in the opening chapter, he seems to saying very clearly that this world has nothing to offer a person, nothing, except the ability to do a mitzvah. That's it. That's it. That is it. There is nothing in this world for a person other than to do a mitzvah. And if it's anything that is in this world that's not to do a mitzvah, what is it? Worthless.
Sin?
No, worthless. Not sin, worthless. Has no value, no benefit whatsoever. Is there a benefit to a good schnitzel sandwich? No, zero. Is there a benefit to a nice car? No, nothing. But then,
Yeah, you say bracha.
so the bracha is the mitzvah. There's no obligation to eat. Now that you're eating, you have to say a bracha. So the bracha is the mitzvah.
I got you.
We
Now,
eat
on
steaks
Friday,
of-
on the first night of
stay alive,
Passover,
right?
on the first night of Passover, you have an obligation to eat a certain amount of matzah. So there, the eating is a mitzvah. Otherwise, no mitzvah.
But if you don't eat, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to eat. So you got to eat to stay alive. Who says you got to eat a schnitzel sandwich? Who says you got to eat a side burger?
Specifically, I thought you meant-
Who says you got to have a, with the kosher bacon and the alloy sauce and the pretzel bun? And, and groan over it and like, oh, how's yours? Oh, you got to try this and like, worthless. But then in the very same chapter, he goes on and he says, but if you look deeper, literally he says, if you look deeper, see, that's a very simple understanding, but if you look deeper, im tamikoid bedover, if you go deeper, tira, you will see, ki ha'olam nivra l'shimush ha'adam. This world is here to serve a person. He doesn't say anything about doing mitzvahs. He says the whole world is here to serve a person. And where do we see this? The 12 stones of Jacob. The 12 stones of Jacob. Where's there? There's no mitzvah. All the stones wanted to be the one that he put his head under. So how do you juxtapose these two things? It's very simple. The first thing we have to understand is there's only one purpose and one purpose only in this life. And that is to get close to the Almighty. To have a relationship with the infinite being called the creator of the universe. And the only way to have that relationship is to realize that this world is nothing. This world is nothing. It is nothing other than a means for me to do things to get me close to the Almighty. And the only real way to get close to the Almighty is doing mitzvahs. And therefore, do I really care what car I drive? Do I really care what clothes I wear? Do I really care what kind of watch I'm wearing? No. And the moment you start to care about those things is the moment that you stop caring about getting close to the Almighty. However,
But you need to do the mitzvah.
you jump to the other extreme and you say, but if any of those things can be used to enhance your ability to do mitzvahs, if any of those things can be used to enable you, not that they're itself a mitzvah, but if they can enable you to do mitzvahs, if they can help you do more mitzvahs, if they can help you achieve that goal of getting close to the Almighty, then they are serving a purpose and they are no longer worthless. And that's how you can now go back to our story and you can understand. Because if anyone is so destitute that they have nothing, it is incapable for them to do mitzvahs. Why? Because first and foremost, they are so overburdened. First and foremost, they are overburdened with just the insanity of having to worry about what they're going to eat. To be so deprived of basic essentials for life is not living. There's a difference between living and going through the motions of living. And if you are forced, because of your poverty, to only focus on the motions, then you are not free to actually live. And that's why someone who is so destitute is dead.
Wouldn't you want to encourage them? Like,
So therefore, yes, exactly. Because otherwise you're dead.
Why would you call them dead? It's
It's as if they're dead.
oh, okay.
They're not living. It's not a life. It's not a
Dad
life.
don't need money.
It's not a life.
There.
It's not a life.
It's interesting you mentioned that because there's a study that they showed that, for example, happiness on a scale of like money earned,
That is correct.
from like poverty to like just below middle class. So you have
I've seen that study. It's actually interesting that that the happiness goes up in relationship to the monetary wealth that they have until you hit the bottom, and then it drops. The happiness drops. When you get so destitute
right.
that you can't even live, then it drops. Then the happiness drops again.
But then between say like below middle class where you can afford housing and food,
Yeah.
that's covered, to like millions.
Oh, it's plateaued. It's plateaued.
In
Yep.
fact, drops off.
And it drops a little.
And
Yep.
you're like
Yep. That's right. Yeah. It's ironic. The less material you have, the more statistically likely you are to be happy. The more statistically you are to be happy. So therefore, we have to understand that a person should definitely strive and work and make an effort to not be destitute, to not be poor, to not be poverty-stricken. But that shouldn't be the goal, to become obsessed with that wealth, because then it flips to the opposite. So that's why he cried. That's why he cried. So now he has nothing. So Esav's son comes to try and kill him, and he gives Esav everything. So he gives Esav everything. So now he shows up at the well, and what does he realize? He realizes that when my father's father, when my grandfather showed up, when my grandfather's servant showed up to find a wife, he came laden with wealth to try and entice a woman to come. What am I showing up with?
What about the
I'm
bracha?
showing up with that's it.
What about bracha he had already?
But where's the... But
Nothing.
Nothing. He gave it away.
Gunish.
Garnish. What am I going to tell? No. What's he going to tell her? No, you don't understand. I have a bracha. No, I promise. No, I have a bracha. I understand I'm destitute right now, but trust me, I have a bracha.
Money account.
I'm gonna be fabulously wealthy. Now hopefully, yeah, but clearly you didn't get it. And it's known that there's another brother.
Well, the other brother took all the
And it's
wealth.
known that there's another brother. So what would you think? Now, remember, I told you guys this numerous times. I'll repeat it again. What is the one rule I constantly say when you're learning Torah? Is make it real. Okay? Make these things real. So now you, forget what you know, forget what you've read, forget what you've learned. You've heard of a family. You know there's this family, okay? You're from LA. You've heard there's this family in, Bel Air, Persian family, and you're back in a New York Persian family, okay? From the 5 towns. They got 2 sons. They're fabulously wealthy, and one son moves away from the 5 towns. I need to get away from the family, and he comes to LA, and he's dirt poor. What would you think? He got nothing. He's been written out. That's what so Jacob is like, I showed up with nothing. And this is the woman I'm supposed to marry. And what am I supposed to offer her? What am I supposed to... And you guys have to think about this. For those of you who are single in this room, for those of you who are single, you should be thinking to yourself, what am I going to offer a woman? I want to get married. Okay, so what are you going to offer? That doesn't mean that you should be showing up with the Mercedes 5 Series. Oh, that's a BMW. Sorry, I mixed up the 2 cars. You gotta have the Mercedes SL. No, but you gotta have what to offer. Do you have a career? Do you have direction? You know? Do you have goals in life?
Money in account.
Do you see? Because guess what? You know what Jacob can say to
Money's
her?
not good enough.
Jacob can say, I got a bracha. I got a bracha. And guess what? I've got the confidence. I've got the confidence, courage, conviction to make sure that I see that bracha becomes a reality. And you know what? A woman will believe in that. But if a person doesn't have that, what does he have? If you want to find a woman to decide to marry you, you better show up with something. That doesn't mean you got to show up with the Mercedes, but you got to show up with something.
What's something?
You need the Mercedes.
You need a vision. You need a goal. You need direction.
That's not enough.
What are you talking about?
They want everything now.
Then she's shallow and you should run from her.
They all run from us.
Then you're naive and you're buying into the nonsense. She's shallow and you should run from her. And if you think that's all there is, and if you think that's all there is, and if you think that's all there is, then that's all you're looking at.
Los Angeles for you.
You hear that? If you think that's all there is, that's all you're looking at. Okay? All right.
It's not there around.
No, it's not.
They want from me because what I got to offer, right?
Okay, then change that. Stop blaming them. Wake up, look in the mirror, and say, "What the heck am I going to offer?"
Nothing.
Okay, then yeah, they're going to run from you. All right.
Why?
Okay.
Crying because
All right. Yeah.
Nothing's
He
good
said, why he's
enough.
crying because he has nothing.
So that's what he said. He's crying. I got nothing.
That's it.
He's like, I showed up with nothing. My grandfather's servant showed up with laden. What have I got?
Gotta go to Israel.
So he's crying.
Didn't he look
Looks what?
decent?
Yeah, but he's got nothing.
Strong, tall,
Yeah.
something, no?
So that's what he's got.
Youth.
That's what he's going to have to rely on, and that's going to work. And that's going to no, it's going to work right away. It's going to work right away. Okay. All right.
Forgive me, I'm not going to interrupt.
Why not? Everyone else did. What makes it fun?
The more the merrier.
Yeah. All right. All right. We'll wrap it up here.